57 million children, or 1 out of 10 children, is still out of school, and that compounded by the poor quality of education in many parts of the world, that 250 million, which is almost 40% of all primary school age children, are not learning even the basics in reading, writing, and numeracy. We have an opportunity to fix this, not just us here in the US, but people across the world in developed and developing countries alike. That's what the Global Partnership for Education is. It's a genuine partnership that rallies all countries together to fix these critical issues. And this June, the Global Partnership for Education will hold its peak campaign moment to secure commitments, including those from the US, that will drive its work in the years to come and continue to provide essential education interventions that break the cycle of poverty and build lasting, sustainable progress. Last Saturday, we heard from the CEO of the Global Partnership for Education, Alice Albright, who informed us all of these issues and the issues that GPE is seeking to address, the role of the June Pledging Conference, and the importance of the work that advocates like all of you are doing that has the power to make the Pledging Conference a success. Now tonight we'll hear from Allison Grossman, Results Senior Legislative Associate. Allison has not only been working with some of you, but also several other advocacy organizations to develop a united, coordinated approach to ensuring that the U.S. government plays its fullest role in the GPE replenishment. Tonight's webinar is being recorded and will be made available online afterwards. Again, if you're not speaking, we ask that you have yourself on mute, and then if you have a question, simply unmute yourself and chime in. I think there's a good amount of us that we should be able to facilitate a bit more of a conversation. And so now I would like to, and also, as I said earlier, if you do have a question, alternatively, you can type it into the meeting chat box on the lower left, and we should be able to respond to it that way. So now I would like to turn it over to Allison, who will guide us through our strategy on how exactly we will best combine our forces to make GPE's June Pledging Conference a true success. Allison?
Sure. Thanks, Tony, and thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I will just say that it's a little windy here in Washington, and there have been quite a few power outages around the region already tonight. So I know Tony and I have both had our lights flicker at home. So if we get cut off or lose internet, we'll let you know. But just a warning before we kind of dive into the content of what we're dealing with tonight. So thank you again for joining us this evening. As Tony said at the outset, this webinar will really look at the strategy and tactics around our Global Partnership for Education Replenishment campaign. We have a variety of resources on content around education and around the Global Partnership, and those are or will be made available online. And I'm happy to send additional information or resources to anyone who has content-related questions. So we'll get started. So why now? Why is this such a critical moment for the Global Partnership for Education and for global education as a whole? We all know that we cannot end poverty without strong education systems.
It looks like the...
Someone have a question? Okay. So we know that we cannot end poverty without strong education systems. And we also know that current education systems are really failing to meet the needs of the poorest and the most vulnerable children around the world. If we continue with the rate that we are going, we'll fail to reach MDG 2 around universal primary education by 2015. We also know, as Tony mentioned, there are still 57 million primary-age school children out of school, and 250 million children are failing to acquire basic literacy and numeracy skills. So why the Global Partnership for Education? The Global Partnership for Education really, we believe, is the most effective institution to build these systems for children in the poorest countries and to build long-term and lasting solutions. The Global Partnership works on the entire education system, not just individual parts. And it also has a unique convening power to bring together all partners in a country to coordinate efforts behind a single plan. So the June Replenishment Conference is a powerful moment for the world to course correct on education if donors are really willing to step up to the plate and make that correction. And the United States is a key part of that. The U.S. must show leadership at the June Pledging Conference. So moving on to replenishment details and really what we're facing. The target for donor commitments at the Pledging Conference in June is $3.5 billion total. So the Global Partnership is looking for $3.5 billion from all donors from the period of 2015 to 2018. It's a 4-year replenishment cycle. And just some logistics of what June will actually look like. The Pledging Conference itself is one day. It's June 26th, 2014. And yes, that is 2 days after we see you all at the International Conference in Washington. It's at the Egg, which is an event space in Brussels. It's hosted by the European Union. And who will be there? Representatives from developing country governments, from donor governments, civil society representatives, including Result staff, private sector partners, and other global leaders. So it'll really be a gathering of global education experts and advocates and decision makers from around the world. There will be pledges throughout the day with parallel side sessions delving into issues around achieving impact with the funds that are pledged towards the Global Partnership for Education. And we also know that GPE staff are looking to get some pretty high-name folks in the room during replenishment to really motivate donors and motivate developing countries to make pledges, And I'll just add, too, that it's not only donor country governments that will be making pledges. The $3.5 billion target is for donors, but during the replenishment conference, the Global Partnership will also be asking developing country governments to increase their own domestic financing for education, to increase the entire amount of money going towards education around the world. And again, feel free to chime in with questions throughout. So moving on to the next slide, we have this $3.5 billion number now. What will this actually accomplish for children? We'll know more. This is really just the beginning of what we know around what these funds will actually be able to do for kids. So there'll be more information coming soon, but a few highlights at the moment in terms of what the Global Partnership will do between 2015 and 2018. These funds will support 29 million children in primary and lower secondary schools. The number of children completing primary school with literacy and numeracy skills will increase by 25%. The number of girls completing primary school will increase by 10%. And if the full $3.5 billion is committed, it will leverage an additional $16 billion in developing country partners' domestic financing for education, going a long way towards closing the funding gap that we have for global education. So that's the global picture. We'll talk a little bit now about what the role of the U.S. government looks like in this whole pledging conference. So looking at what the U.S. should pledge in June. Results and our other partners in civil society in the U.S. are urging the administration to make a commitment of investing $250 million over 2 years to the Global Partnership. This is for fiscal years 2015 and 2016. And as I said earlier, the replenishment period is 4 years. It's 2015 to 2018. But we're asking for a 2-year commitment because the Obama administration, who will be making the pledge, will only be writing budgets for 2015 and 2016. Part of the 2015 budget request from the administration was just released last week. We don't yet have the details on their funding request for basic education or the Global Partnership for Education, but the 2015 appropriations will be key in this process. And the 2016 request will also be incredibly important as we look to increase the amount of money the U.S. contributes to the Global Partnership every year. You might recall that in 2012, the U.S. contributed $20 million to the Global Partnership, and it's expected to actually do the same from 2013 funds. That's not quite final yet and not public, but we expect another contribution of $20 million from 2013 funds. So by focusing on a high 2-year pledge, we're really looking to change the baseline of what the U.S. contributes to the Global Partnership from a very low number to something that is much closer to what other major donors are also giving to the Global Partnership. So you can see on the screen that to date, the UK, for instance, has contributed almost $775 million to the Global Partnership, which is just so far beyond the U.S. contribution. And looking at this upcoming Replenishment Conference, it's expected that the request for the UK government will likely to remain steady at about a quarter of all contributions, is what we're expecting the ask to be. And Results Australia is asking their government for $100 million per year from their government, or a pledge of $400 million total. So a 2-year, $250 million pledge, $250 million over 2015 and 2016, will really give the U.S. a leadership role that we're looking for and bring it closer to some of these other major donors. So I just want to check in and see if there's any questions so far around the pledge, the 2-year pledge versus the 4-year replenishment period. All right. So we'll move on then to putting the replenishment, the Global Partnership for Education replenishment in context, with some of the other campaigns that Results has been working on and that you all have been working on. So the pledge to the Global Partnership for Education, the decision maker in this case is the administration. We expect someone from the administration, likely from USAID, to attend the pledging conference in June and to make the announcement. And the decision around the pledge is fully in the hands of the administration. The request is a pledge, just simply a pledge, of $250 million over 2 years. And again, the final decision will be made in June. This is separate but related to our fiscal year 2015 appropriations request, which I hope everyone is working hard on right now, in which case the decision maker is Congress and specifically the appropriations committees. So these two campaigns really have two different targets in terms of who can make the final decision. Our global education request this year is to include $125 million as a contribution to the Global Partnership for Education in the fiscal year 2015 appropriations bill. So the $125 million that we're asking for the Global Partnership is half of the $250 million pledge that we're asking the administration to make. So it can get a little confusing, but they're connected in very strategic ways. And as we know, we're working hard on appropriations right now, and the final decision in terms of timing on the fiscal year 2015 appropriations bills is really dependent on how fast Congress moves. But the bulk of our work is really happening this month with appropriations requests and letters. And then finally is the Education for All Act, which Results has worked on for many years now, and plays a key role as really a building block towards the replenishment. So the Education for All Act authorizes the U.S. to contribute to the Global Partnership for Education. It's a policy bill. And the work that has been done to secure co-sponsors of the bill has really helped to build a base of supporters for replenishment. So your advocacy on the bill helps educate congressional offices on global education and the Global Partnership for Education. And now their names are on record as supportive, so we can go back to them with key asks around replenishment. So now looking at what Results campaign might look like from now through June. And given that the target is the administration, the decision maker is the administration, we know that we need to move the administration by showing public and political support for an ambitious U.S. pledge to the Global Partnership for Education. And our campaign really has two objectives in order to make this happen. The first is public pressure. And really working with your local media is key to doing this, And this is something that Results has done in the past. I'm sure many of you had meetings on replenishment of the Global Fund for AIDS, TB, and Malaria last year. Very similar, but we actually need to be more ambitious and even more aggressive in our generation of local media, because the Global Partnership for Education is newer and less well known, and we're starting at a different point than some of the other initiatives that we've worked on through media. So you can see on the screen we have very ambitious media targets for this campaign. 25 editorials, 30 op-eds, and 150 letters to the editor. Hopefully you've already started your outreach or started thinking about outreach to your local editorial boards, and please reach out to staff if you need assistance or tips or support in any way. And we actually had our first op-ed placed in Everett, Washington on this past Sunday, written by Willie Dickerson and Teresa Rugg. It went around on the listservs. I hope you had a chance to read it. It's a really exciting and powerful start to our media push on the Global Partnership for Education Replenishment. I actually passed it along to our contacts at the Global Partnership Secretariat, and they were very excited to read it. So I hope that I have many, many more editorials and op-eds to pass their way in the coming months. We're also working on 2 media tours with education advocates from Sub-Saharan Africa. We're looking to do one tour at the beginning of April with a new partner of ours, a really amazing advocate who's head of the National Education for All Coalition in Malawi. And then another tour at the end of April to keep the media push going with Janet Musoni Ouko from Kenya, who traveled with us this past November for outreach and education events. And these media tours and meetings with your editorial boards are really key to show the administration that people are watching, and that as they go into replenishment, there are people tracking what they're doing, that the Global Partnership for Education knows that the public is watching, and so they can step up their advocacy with the U.S. government, and that there's just a good amount of pressure that so they actually step up and increase their contribution to something much closer to where they should be as such a global leader. And the second tactic, which ties into the media work, is congressional support. Congress has the power to increase the political will in the administration to make that pledge that we're talking about. So during the last replenishment in November, in 2011 was the Global Partnership for Education's last replenishment. We worked with Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky from Illinois to secure 69 members of the House on a letter urging the administration to make a strong multi-year pledge. We're working with her office, and we'll hopefully have her lead another letter for us again this year, and we need even more members to sign on this year. In the Senate, we probably won't have the same sort of sign-on letter as we will in the House, but we will be urging senators to write directly to the administration, expressing their support for a strong U.S. pledge at the pledging conference. And at the same time, one of the ways that you can ensure that your member of Congress or senator signs onto a letter or writes a letter is generating media in your hometown and passing it on to your congressional office. I know that's always a part of the process, but just a reminder that the public media is key for both public pressure for the administration, but also to increase congressional support as we ask members of Congress to take action. And then just a note to keep in mind that the letter that we're talking about in the House to the administration is different from the annual appropriations letters that are starting to happen right now. Instead of being to the Appropriations Committee, it will be to the administration, and the timing will also be after all of those letters. So just keep in mind there won't be a GPE letter during appropriation season. It will be after. And I'd also just like to say that this will be a long campaign. It's likely that we won't know what the U.S. will commit at the pledging conference until the pledging conference actually happens. And it's also likely that the U.S. itself won't have made those decisions until the pledging conference actually happens. So our job is to keep the pressure on right up until the conference. And I'd love to get some thoughts from you all on how many members of Congress, members of the House, we think we can get on a letter calling for a pledge of $250 million over 2 years to the administration. Any thoughts? We had 69 last time. Okay, well, think about it and let me know. We're looking to create a goal around that once we have a letter. So would love to know what you think is an ambitious target that we can achieve for a letter to the administration. And then looking next to when some of these activities will happen, this slide has a lot of the same information as the last slide that we went through, but just in a timeline order. So a few things
Allison?
that, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. We may have a question from Peter. I'm getting him off mute. Peter, did you have a question or a comment? May have just... Oh, I guess not. Sorry, there was a flag raised. Go ahead, Allison. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Thanks, Tony. So on March 18th, the monthly media support call that happens each month will actually be focused on generating media on the Global Partnership for Education. And Colin Smith, our Deputy Director for Communications, will be doing a webinar that walks through some tips for securing editorial board meetings, for figuring out local tips to make your editorial or op-ed more appropriate for your local market, and some just really great strategies to make sure that we hit the media targets we need to make a difference. So that information on how to connect is on our website on the events page, and also feel free to contact Colin directly for more information on that call or for media information in general. For the editorial board meetings and looking to generate local media, we're really doing that now through May. And the earlier that we can get started, the better, to really build political support now through the Replenishment Conference. At the beginning and the end of April, I mentioned we'll have media speaker tours with education advocates from sub-Saharan Africa. So that'll really, we think, jumpstart the media work that we're looking to do. In April will be the congressional letter to the administration. Again, that will probably be, we don't know the dates exactly, but after the appropriations letters and deadlines all end at the beginning of April. On June 21st through 24th is our international conference. Hope to see you all in Washington. And then right after is, on June 26th, is the Global Partnership for Education Pledging Conference. And one thing that I'll note too, after June 26th, our work isn't actually over, as we all know. We have to do follow-up and keep the U.S. government accountable for the pledge that it makes at the conference, and really ensure that Congress appropriates the funds that are needed to fulfill that pledge. So that's something that we've done on Gavi and the Global Funds, and we'll also have to do on the Global Partnership for Education as we look to the actual replenishment period. And then just to point out a few of the partners, Results isn't doing this alone. We have a great coalition of organizations that we're working with in Washington. I just wanted to point a few out to you. The Global Campaign for Education U.S. chapter, which the Secretariat is actually housed at the Results office, is a great support system for our work on this. We're helping lead a working group within the Global Campaign for Education to bring together partners to create a coordinated strategy to communicate with the Global Partnership for Education and to really increase our impact across partners. So we're working with folks like Save the Children, Plan, CARE, the U.S. Fund for UNICEF, and more. We're also working closely with Global Poverty Project. Some of you might be familiar with the Global Citizen website or Global Citizen Festival that they have each year, and they're having some events around the country this year where we'll be asking people attending to take action in support of the Global Partnership for Education replenishment, and a few other kind of key points where we'll be able to engage with them. We're also sharing content on their page, so like our action sheet will be seen by all of their activists as well, which is a really exciting partnership for Results. And then again, just to point out, that we're doing this in conjunction with results affiliates around the world, with Australia, with Canada, with the UK, to make sure that all of our governments continue to contribute the amounts that we expect them to, and to really keep up support of the Global Partnership for Education so we can support those 29 million children in school. Campaign resources. So what kinds of materials can you expect to actually come out and support the work that you're doing? First is really key, and that's the Global Partnership for Education case for investment, excuse me. In a few days, anytime really, we'll have this business case for investment, why donors should contribute to the Global Partnership for Education. This will have more statistics, more data, and other information on what the Global Partnership will actually achieve for kids if it reaches the $3.5 billion replenishment target. And that's really the first document that we need to release many of these other pieces. But the next document, the next material that I'm really excited about, I know Tony is really excited about, we hope that you'll be really excited about, is called Greater Impact Through Partnership, 8 Reasons to Invest in the Global Partnership for Education Now More Than Ever. And this, again, is a joint results affiliate brief that looks at Australia, Canada, the UK, and the United States and their role in the GPE Pledging Conference. And again, it actually lays out 8 very detailed, specific reasons why it is so critical for our government to invest in the Global Partnership for Education. It's beautiful. Tony designed it with his amazing graphic design skills, full color, and it'll be available for all of the work that you're doing with your congressional offices and media and community outreach, and we're just really excited to get that to you as soon as we can. We're waiting on some of the final statistics from the Global Partnership case for investment before that goes out. And watch out, along with that brief, we'll have a blog series and some social media to really push that out to partners and explain all of the great data and material that's in that brief. We also, at the moment, have a media toolkit, and we'll soon have an updated media toolkit. We'll have an updated editorial packet and an updated sample pitch that will both be coming soon, again, waiting for some of that data from the Global Partnership. And we also currently have a tip sheet for identifying local angles and an action sheet on writing letters to the editor on the replenishment. Both of those went out in this week's weekly update. They're both really fantastic, so I hope that you'll take a look at them. A few other resources that we have. We mentioned at the beginning of the call that Tony and I did a webinar back in February on content related to Education for All and the Global Partnership for Education. That's currently on our website, on our blog. And then we also will soon have a copy of the Global Grassroots webinar with the Global Partnership CEO, Alice Albright, that we did last Saturday. And as soon as we have a copy of that recording, it will also be up on our website. And very soon, all of these materials will be in one place at results.org/issues/global partnership. So bookmark that page. You can visit that page on our website for all of our campaign materials as they're released. And you can find, hopefully, whatever you need when you get there. And so that's the end of the PowerPoint. I would love to hear any questions, ideas for what other resources would be helpful for your work as we delve into this campaign, and then any ideas that you have as we continue to refine the strategy around congressional champions, tactics, messaging, anything else you have. So I'd love to open it up now and see what kind of discussion we can have.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Allison. And yes, as Allison said, lines are open, and it would be great. We have about 25 minutes left here. It would be great to hear some comments, questions, and general brainstorming even as we're looking ahead to the June replenishment. And I do hope the technology is working. I think microphones do look unmuted on my side. Well, Allison, any last comments from yourself or guidance while we're here?
I don't think so. Just to say that we're all really excited for this campaign. I hope that this helps clarify some of our thoughts around it and what you can expect in the coming months. And please feel free to be in touch with me or with Tony if you have any questions, any ideas as we continue working on this campaign.
Excellent. And as Allison went through, we just really do have a lot of exciting things coming up in the months ahead. Not only new resources and information, both from ourselves here at Results, but also, of course, from the Global Partnership for Education. But very exciting opportunities around the speakers and some of our affiliates and partners from the developing countries that GPE is working in. And it's civil society, it's people just like you and me there in some of these countries that are campaigning on these issues at this very moment. So it will be great to have them make visits here and to hear directly from them as far as what the campaigning looks like on their side. And really, there's a lot of excitement around the things to come as we look forward to the June 26th pledging conference. So if there's nothing else, I'll say thank you on behalf of all of us here at Results. It's been a great evening, and thank you to Allison for taking us through the strategy and what we're looking at, both as far as congressional outreach and media outreach from now till June. And you'll be seeing and hearing a lot more from us as we continue our campaign towards the pledging conference at the end of June. Thank you, everyone,
And,
and have a good.
and I'll just add, too, that the recording of this webinar will be made available on our website, as will the PowerPoint itself. So we will have a blog up on that soon, and it will go out in a weekly update on the listserv. So keep an eye out.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, so much, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Good night.